I need opening statements. Schrager, what are we watching for Sunday night, Ravens and Bills?
Oh, it's Lamar and Josh Allen, and they give it to us in week 1. But I am looking at the Baltimore Ravens. They started off the season 0-2 last year, and they lost in Buffalo at the end in the playoffs in the divisional round, and Lamar did not play his best game. Can the Ravens start off the season with a statement win and show that they are truly going to be contenders to the Chiefs and Bills in the AFC this season?
Yeah, what you're seeing there, they lost that game to KC, that's one thing. They lost this game to the Raiders week 2, and that may have haunted them the entirety of the year. Lewis, Friday night in Brazil, Chiefs Chargers, what are you watching?
I'm watching pick number 32 of the 2025 draft. That being Josh Simmons, the starting tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, who, quite honestly, Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, stole from the rest of the league, picking him that late in the first round, a guy who's probably going to be challenging for Pro Bowl berths this year, early in his career. He's got every tool imaginable. They are totally satisfied with the way he has looked in the preseason. They are ready to get it started and let him protect Patrick Mahomes' blindside.
Obrigado, which is thank you in Portuguese. Domonique, Cowboys, Eagles, tomorrow night. What are you watching for?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Eagles offense specifically. Last time they went to the Super Bowl and replaced their coordinators, their offense struggled early on, particularly with how to address the blitz. So I'm assuming with the Super Bowl championship under their belt and some more experience for their quarterback, they'll be comfortable, but adjusting to a new play caller and a little bit change in the play design, I think is something to watch for. I think they'll be fine, though.
All right, it's an interesting dynamic. Whenever a team wins a championship, they have a variety of options on how they choose to approach the following season. I want you to hear from both Nick Sirianni and A.J. Brown on how they're not looking in the rearview mirror anymore.
How do you feel about the fact that even though it is banner night for you guys, the fans will still have the standard of performing and winning at a high level?
Yeah, I didn't know it was banner night. We won't be out for that.
You know, I think from the outside, I think the city and everybody's been talking about it, but you know, this building has been locked in. You know, we put it at the bed long ago, and like I said, we just ready to go. You know, that's over with.
So that's the way they've chosen to go about it. And Lewis, you have 2 reasons why you think it might just be the right approach.
Yeah, look, because head coaches constantly are worried about 2 things in the NFL, and they're worried about it in particular at the start of a season. 1, having your season derailed by injuries. 2, having a championship season kind of like bleed into the next season in terms of complacency, meaning you're thinking about last year. Nick Sirianni's not having any of that. Control what you can control, right? Injuries you can't really control. I mean, you can control soft tissue injuries to some degree in terms of your offseason preparation, but complacency, coaches hammer that into players all the time. And one of the best things that they love to hear coming out of their own team is for a leader like A.J. Brown saying, we put that to bed a long time ago. That's exactly the start that they need.
What do you think of it, Kmart?
Well, just think about it. The moment that I think about is when they got their rings and Jalen kind of looks at it and puts it down. I don't even know if the guy even tried it on that night. And that, to me, set the stage. I was just in Kansas City recently for the premiere of The Kingdom. Like, the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, and they have a documentary. You've got the Cowboys on TV. Like, all these things are happening where the Eagles are like, yeah, we're not the defending champs. We are a team that's 0-0 right now, and we have a long season ahead of us.
Think about the last time they won a Super Bowl. You had Jason Kelce in the Mummers costume. You had this parade, and it's all Philly finally wins. Nick Sirianni, this is so on brand. He wants to always have edge. He wants to always be angry. He wants his guys to always feel like they are being treated like less than. The truth of the matter is, they're the heavy favorites in the NFC East. And this might not just be manufactured. This might actually be what is organic in that locker room. They don't want to have any complacency going into the start of the season, knowing that everybody is picking them out of that conference.
Quickly, Nick, why do you look so skeptical?
I mean, I think it's authentic to them, which is great, and I think it's one way to approach it. But also, there's nothing wrong with being happy. You accomplished something pretty impressive. You can celebrate. Congratulations, you're Super Bowl champs. Like, there are teams that approach the season like, let's run it back. We have something to prove. There are other ways to motivate yourself to avoid the complacency other than being mad, but I think this works perfectly, honestly, for this Eagles franchise in Philadelphia itself.
Fair enough. One way or another, Schrager, you just said they're the favorites in the NFC East. I think I would remove the East from that. Yep. They're the favorites. I mean, period, end of sentence. And if you don't believe me, listen to someone who knows a little something about winning championships. Here's Cowboys legend, our very own Troy Aikman on the Eagles.
As someone who has won some Super Bowls, I do think, until proven otherwise, they're the team to beat. There's not much not to like about the Eagles. I do feel that they're the best in the NFC right now.
As someone who's won a
I love it. He wouldn't look at the camera when he said it. Yeah.
I love that flex.
Well, but it's the same point Neek just made. Like, there's nothing wrong with being happy. There's nothing wrong with making sure that the context of this conversation is, I won 3 Super Bowls, and thus what I'm about to say is important.
Yes,
it happens. There's nothing wrong with it if you're right,
Yeah.
and he's right. Yeah. But is he? Are the Eagles, Louis Riddick, the team to beat? I would take out just the NFC. Are they the best team in football as this season begins?
Yeah, I would have a hard time saying that they aren't as well, because of the fact that, look, offensively, they return everyone, basically. I mean, and they're loaded and they're motivated. And I think the approach that they're taking is another reason why I would take them against the field. Defensively, there's 2 questions I have. Number one, the depth of the defensive line, which we saw was really the driving force in the Super Bowl. And 2, obviously, the cornerback position opposite Quinyon Mitchell. What does Keely Ringo look like? Is he going to be able to withstand the barrage that people are going to throw at him? Because they're going to say, hey, look, we're not going to go over here. This young man as a rookie proved it. We don't want to mess with him. We mess with you before this pass rush gets to us. Mm-hmm. So guys like Nolan Smith, Jalex Hunt, they got to come up. But they have a history of coming up with guys who continually step in. So, yeah, I would still give them the title until proven otherwise.
This might ruffle feathers in AFC cities, but I would say the better quarterbacks are in the AFC, but the better head coaches are in the NFC. And the guys that are game planning all offseason are going to be McVay and Shanahan and LaFleur. And then you go down the list of Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell. You have a really good list of head coaches that now have an entire season's worth of Eagles game film. I wouldn't just hand it over. I know Andy Reid and Sean Payton are going to make
West is going to be.
I get that. I understand.
Off.
I think the quarterbacks are in the AFC this year, and I think the head coaches are in the NFC. And I wouldn't just hand it to the Eagles based on the coaches that they've got to go against in that conference.
That's a major declaration right there.
That's a take.
Well, what you just did is
that is a
you
take.
literally just created 6 other conversations for us to have this morning. Rip up the C block. But one way or another, let's circle back to what he's saying. Because the Eagles, they are going to get everybody's best shot. There are a lot of really good teams in there. And if there is any weakness there, I've completely lost my track of thought. They have lost some pieces on defense as well. The offensive coordinator and pieces on defense.
Yeah, all the questions that Louis laid out are fair. My counter would be every team in the NFC, AFC for that matter, has some question, whether it be a quarterback, at head coach, or roster configuration. The Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champion. They return almost everybody. There is no reason that they shouldn't be the team that you pick. I think everybody might be picking the Eagles, but the way people talk about Jalen Hurts, it's like, I know he's a Super Bowl MVP, but I don't know if he's a top 10, top 5. I think that's sort of one of the reasons why that man wasn't even looking at that ring. He's like, okay, I did this, but he's still being disrespected. So I think this whole team is the best, but they still feel internally that people are not giving them their.
If there's any, I'm not any part of the Jalen Hurts disrespect or question mark, but if there is any, it would be because they just voted Saquon Barkley the number 1 player in the entire NFL. And so I would then ask you, Domonique Foxworth, meaning he's got that on his side. Let's not get sidetracked again. Neek, will they need another season like that from Barkley? Barkley just had a season for the ages, one of the 2 or 3 greatest running back seasons in the history of the NFL. Does he have to be that again for this team to repeat?
No, he had almost 350 carries last year. You can't expect him to continue to carry that load, and I don't think that teams are going to enter these games anticipating that Saquon Barkley's not going to be a big factor. So I think teams will approach it. To Schrager's point, there will be game plan decisions made, and the talent differential between the Eagles and other teams is there, but it's still the NFL. These guys are still really good. I think there are scheme adjustments that they can make to put more pressure on the passing game, but the problem there is they got 2 of the best tackles in the league, 2 of the best receivers in the league, and a Super Bowl MVP at quarterback. That's why we still see them as the favorite. Like, this team, no matter what you do, they can find a matchup that they can exploit. The question is, are you going to be able to make those plays? Because they're more talented than just about everyone, and they have the experience of going to and winning a Super Bowl.
We are back on Get Up, and brand new this morning, Jerry Jones continues his media tour to promote the Cowboys documentary on Netflix. It's been well-timed considering the news around the Cowboys. He was on Good Morning America today, Just after shocking the NFL and trading star Micah Parsons to the Packers last week, here's what he said when asked about it this morning.
We have two kinds of capital or currency in the NFL. One of them is draft picks, and the other is the financial, because every team is limited to the same amount of resources to spend. And having said that, Micah enabled us to have 4, possibly as many as 6 players for the future. That's a good trade when you need numbers. I'll take the numbers every time.
Okay.
So there's that. Who wants that one first? I mean, I don't.
Go ahead, Peter.
I could explode if you wanted me to. Go ahead.
Look, he's got to justify his decision now, and he's going to talk it throughout the week until we play on Thursday that this was the right decision. We won't know until we see how it all plays out, and that may take years down the line. The truth of the matter is, they could have gotten this thing done last year. They didn't. Toothpaste was out of the tube, and Jerry actually made the move. I think a lot of people didn't think he was courageous enough to do, and now he's kind of puffing his chest and saying, here's why I did it, and watch, I'm going to be right, and you're all going to be wrong.
Is it courageous?
I know it was one of the more courageous.
It was
/
bold and audacious. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I just here's a guy who knew in his heart, I'm getting rid of him. And it became personal, and it shouldn't be. It's about football.
This is about, okay, no, let's just say this. If there was a plan instead of an emotional reaction, this is a trade that would have been made in March. You would have been able to involve half the teams in the National Football League and got their best offer,
ransom.
and then you really could have turned this into 6 good players for the future. That's when it would have made sense. When you trade him on a Thursday because your game planning for week 1 starts on Friday, you wind up getting 2 number 1s from the Packers that might as well be second-round picks. They're both going to be in the late 20s. Packers might win the whole damn thing with Micah. It becomes the 32nd pick in the draft, so you don't get anywhere near the same caliber of
60 cents
4
on the
or
dollar
6 players.
they got him here.
At best. That's a great deal. This was a terribly handled situation. It doesn't matter what happens. Whatever winds up happening is separate. You can only judge this based upon what happened, how we got here, and the way they chose to handle it. It was miserably mishandled regardless of the outcome. Neek, why are you looking at me like that?
I mean, in Jerry's defense, situations change. So, like, I agree that had he done this earlier, things would have worked out better. But that's not how it happened. And I always find myself trying to defend some of these decisions. I think back to, like, Terry Fontenot deciding to draft Michael Penix despite paying Kirk Cousins. And that made sense to me. You don't pass up on what you think is a franchise quarterback just because you have one on the roster. That's a bad decision. The tough thing about Jerry Jones is that it's not congruent. And if you want to move on from Micah Parsons because he is not a cultural fit in your locker room or something like that, like, that's justifiable. If you're planning for the future, that's all justifiable. What I have a hard time with is, like, finding the other decisions and the other behaviors around this decision that suggest that there's some sort of plan. And maybe they will come. So I appreciate that a player can demand a trade and then it actually happens and he gets his money. Now I'm looking for what Jerry Jones does next to make this particular decision make some sense and make us understand what he's aiming for, because it's obviously not a Super Bowl this season.
This decision will never make sense. No matter, look, the only way you can justify it, you may be able to justify it in the end if they wind up getting 2 future Pro Bowlers and they wind up being catalysts to kind of spur this team on to become some kind of postseason, juggernaut. But as far as the process and the manner by which they made this decision, you can never justify it. Because the fact of the matter is this: Micah wasn't a cultural problem. Jerry wanted to sign him. Supposedly they had a deal done. Jerry wanted him to be a Cowboy for life. Micah wanted to be a Cowboy for life. This became something about, no, you said we had a deal, now you're involving your agent. Whatever, like, Jerry has as far as his issues with Micah's representation is a whole different story that maybe the truth hasn't even come out. I mean, this was not, you can never justify the manner in which they arrived at this. You just can't, because the fact is he wanted him to be there. This became something that really transcends the whole business of football. This became strictly personal. Like, how dare you balk on a deal that you and I talked about when we were supposed to be having a conversation about leadership initially anyway? How dare you not go against my wishes? I'm the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. How dare you go against that, Micah? How dare you not accept a deal even though your representation wasn't here. I mean, that's what this came, and there's no way you can defend that. There's no way you can justify that.
And look, we don't need to relitigate the trade. We know what happened. We know what happened. I'm just looking at what he just said. I'm taking on face value what he just said. When you need numbers, I'll take the numbers every time.
But
that's not the way you handled the Dak Prescott situation. It's not the way you handled the CeeDee Lamb situation. You could have signed both those guys way before and saved a lot more numbers. They managed to spend much more money on everything than they need to, and then they just sold off, for lack of a better way of putting it, Micah Parsons for way less than they could have gotten. That is an absolutely terrible way to do business. It is the opposite. Domonique, how can you be taking the other side of this? I'm confounded by the expression on your face.
I am not taking the other side of this at all. I'm saying that we owe it to him to at least try to make it make sense, and he's not doing other things that make sense. There's one mistake that you're making, Greeny, is that you're believing that the things that Jerry says are things that he means. I think he says words sometimes that are not connected to the truth. And I also believe that you're interpreting his idea of numbers as differently. I think he's saying, I'll take the numbers as far as more players, more opportunities than overtaking the one player in this situation.
Right.
The problem is, in
which is why you don't
there's
pay
a
your
cap on the
quarterback
salary,
way more
and there's
than
a cap on the roster size.
Right.
And the roster size means that if you can get one player that is worth 6 players, give me that guy instead of 6 players. I don't agree with Jerry Jones. I just think that it's worth trying to consider that there's some plan after this. There needs to be more steps that suggest that they have some goal for the future.
Why are you doing Jerry's homework for him? Why do you feel that we owe it to Jerry to make sense of what Jerry is saying when you just said a lot of what Jerry says isn't actually rooted in the truth? Like, you have one proven player. We see the statistics with Micah Parsons. Give me all the quantity. Maybe I'll hit on a couple of them. You already hit on one. I don't understand. I don't understand.
And we'll say this. We all look.
Nick, go ahead.
I don't believe that we owe it to Jerry. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the audience to try to make this make some sort of sense. We can continue to say that Jerry is a buffoon, which we have been saying all damn summer. At this point, I'm trying to figure out if there's some change in plans for Jerry Jones. If the next decision that he makes suggests that there's a change of course. The major problem with this decision, not only that you're giving up a future Hall of Famer, is that it doesn't make sense for this season. It doesn't make sense for this team. When there are other decisions, if that makes some sort of sense, then I would say, all right, at least there's a plan. It's not something I believe in, but at least there's a plan.
Albeit it was in March when the deal was done. But the Kansas City Chiefs had just won a Super Bowl, and they had Tyreek Hill, the most explosive player in all of football, and they traded him for a couple draft picks, and those draft picks became Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, and they used that trade to start rebuilding the team and getting younger on cheaper contracts, and they went on to win 2 more Super Bowls. Jerry Jones ain't Brett Veach. I know that. However, we can't act like this is unprecedented trading a player in the NFL.
And even in that situation, they wanted to re-sign Tyreek. They tried to re-sign Tyreek, and then they said, okay, you know what? But it didn't become personal.
And it was never contentious. In fact, Tyreek still has fond feelings for Kansas City.
By the way, I could live without Hembo sneaking in passive-aggressive statistics during the conversation just to try and make me feel bad. In the meantime, let's talk about the play. Yeah, that guy, that little evil genius over there that we have in the corner. Go ahead, take Jonathan's camera and show. Yeah, that's it. He's just sitting there. He's just sitting there throwing in a little statistic at me.
I saw.
Don't think I didn't notice that. All right, in the meantime, let me put up C23. Because this is the player that the Dallas Cowboys just traded away. Since the Green Bay Packers acquired Micah Parsons on August 28th, 50% of the total money wagered on who will win the Defensive Player of the Year award at ESPN Bet Sportsbook has been placed on Micah Parsons. So I would ask you, Peter Schrager, in your line of work, you're not allowed to make any wagers, but were you? Right now, do you think the best bet to be Defensive Player of the Year is Micah Parsons?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be playing with a giant chip on his shoulder, and they've got a really good defense around him, and it's a popular pick, especially from the writers who are going to be the ones voting on this, who are going to say, look what he did for the Packers, look what he did for the defense. Remember, this is not an objective award that you can just earn. People vote on it, and I think there's a lot of human element that is rooting for Micah Parsons to make this trade look right.
Yeah, Kmart, it's those damn writers.
We all know
you guys are the problem. How about it? Right now, is he going to be the Defensive Player of the Year?
Is he? I don't know. But like Peter just said, there's plenty of reason to expect that Packers defense. He's the extra on top of a team that we already expected could be a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, I could see it. Rashawn Gary, this defense. Yeah, I could see it.
We basically just saw this. Micah Parsons being the defensive player of the year and the Green Bay Packers winning the Super Bowl would be to the Cowboys exactly what Saquon Barkley being the offensive player of the year and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl was to the Giants last year. It's exactly the same thing. It is like in their face every single
It might not be
minute,
Hard
all the
Knocks,
time.
but we've got Good Morning America and plenty of receipts.
That's exactly right. Go ahead, Nick, finish it up.
Now, I mean, it's a little different because at least the Giants didn't trade him to the Eagles. They just chose not to sign him. The Cowboys called up the Packers and was like, hey, want a Super Bowl? Here. Take Micah Parsons.
Take our best player.
That's right. It's the opposite. John Mara was like, I'm not going to sleep real well if he winds up with the Eagles.